Hello.
Welcome everyone on behalf of South Dakota Education Association. Wow, words are hard. We're going to give people a couple of minutes here as we're just approaching the noon hour for our East River folks, the 11 o'clock hour over here West River. So we're just going to give people a couple of minutes before we get started. I'm going to go ahead and give some of our South Dakota higher education updates before we get started. So if you all did not receive the communication last week, our registration is open for our annual conference that will be in October. I should have the dates right in front of me. October 13th through the 15th is what's ringing around in my brain. And it will be in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Thank you, Bryce, for sharing that. So registration is open. We are looking for breakout presenters, so that is open as well. So if you have a breakout session or know of a colleague that is doing some really great things and has information to share with other higher education professionals in South Dakota, encourage them to submit to present, and we would love to have them. So that is open. Again, registration is also open and will be open for a while. But so that's our big news. Stay tuned for more information about annual conference moving forward. But I am going to go ahead and introduce our speaker. So joining us today is Dr. Kevin Fullerton. He is the Director of Career Development at South Dakota State University. Dr. Fullerton has 26 years of experience working in higher education. During his career, he has worked at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Killian Community College, University of South Dakota, Washburn University, and the University of Kansas. His experience includes classroom teaching, experiential education, administration, and program administration. He maintains active memberships with National Association of Colleges and Employers, National Career Development Association, and the Career Leadership Collective. So with that, I am going to hand the microphone, if you will, over to Kevin Fullerton. And one more caveat, if you have questions or thoughts throughout the presentation, feel free to use the chat function, and I'll be monitoring that kind of throughout our time together. So now I will officially pass the microphone over to you.
Thanks so much, Whitney. Thank you to the South Dakota Higher Education Association for inviting me to do this webinar today. I'm looking forward to connecting with you all and kind of get things going here. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll dive in. All right. So it's kind of exciting too. I'm seeing some folks here that have actually been to my Career Champions workshop and have gone through some of this a little bit with me before, but review is always great. I will say over and over again, repetition and context are really important for students, and so it's important for us too. So I welcome everybody who's here. It's fun to see some familiar faces and some new faces. So yeah, cultivating career experts, really this idea of trying to create a career everywhere ecosystem is something that is driving a lot of the career centers at universities and colleges right now. And I feel like it's really important work and it's fun work. So a little bit of background about myself, if you're not familiar with me. All my degrees are in music. I have a lot of experience in terms of performing classical and jazz music, little brass instruments and harmonica, a little bit of piano is my background. I got into teaching and performance in the early 2000s, and then 2012, I shifted over to experiential education administration, and I've been in that kind of world now for a long time, and specifically career development focused in the last 3 years or so, and really enjoying my time here at South Dakota State University. So I want to start with ideal sort of thinking, like big picture. This is a really good time of year for everybody to just kind of zoom out a little bit. We're heading into the end of the school year. It's hard to sort of stay excited sometimes. We're all in the weeds of like the final event or the final presentation or kind of wrap up. But I want everybody to kind of think about these big picture questions like, what if? So what if every student received holistic career readiness guidance while they were students? What if every single student was able to effectively translate their skills? What if all faculty and all staff understood and felt confident in how to discuss career goals with students? To me, this would be a wonderful world, right? Every student would have a really good sense of the skills they're developing in their classes. They would have a good sense of the kind of skills that they're developing in the student organization that they're a part of, or maybe it's a, a sport that they play, whatever it is, they have a sense of how that is really developing them, not only as students, but as professionals and as people. So career everywhere, as I mentioned earlier, it really has become the dominant strategy nationwide, addressing the confidence gap with faculty and students in terms of career readiness outcomes. It is all about embedding career readiness into courses across campus, not just courses, but also student organizations, student employment. And embedding is really the key word. We're trying to get away from opt-in because we really need students to be exposed to this almost in every sort of area that they interact with on campus, so that they really do develop this sense of what career readiness means and how to pursue that in a lifelong way. I really get excited about this idea because it helps create community. We have this sort of shared sense of what we're working on together, and it allows us to sort of break down silos and between disciplines and that divide between student affairs and academic affairs. So it's a bridging concept for a lot of folks as well. And there's a growing amount of data that demonstrates students' confidence in their career preparation increases if they are consistently exposed to the NACE Career Readiness Competencies. And we'll get into those specifically here. So this report came out in 2024, and I really, it's a really valuable report. The full citation, I'll show you that at the end of this presentation. But some key data points that I like to focus on is 9 out of 10 faculty report that students in their discipline asked them for career advice in the past year, which makes sense, right? We understand that students ask their faculty career advice. More than 3 out of 5 faculty report that alumni reach out to them and ask for career advice as well. Here's where it gets interesting, though. Faculty, this bottom graph here, you can see faculty generally are fairly confident, very confident, somewhat comfortable talking about career guidance, career pathways in their own discipline. That confidence decreases quite a bit, though, when we're talking about any discipline or any major. And it's this gap that I'm really kind of concerned about and focused on today in this presentation. And when I talk about the career readiness competencies, I see it as a way to address this gap in confidence. Because really what it comes down to is skills translation. And if we can get students to really have an ability to communicate their skills, understand the skills that they develop in this one discipline, even if they change the major, they will then understand that they can transfer those skills and translate those skills into something else. So that is really the primary factor. So when I'm talking about using common language, when I'm talking about the NACE career readiness competencies, these are the competencies that I'm talking about: professionalism, communication, critical thinking, technology, leadership, teamwork, self and career development, equity and inclusion. I want to note equity and inclusion is officially a part of NACE's career readiness competencies, but just because of government censorship, we can't really talk much about that particular competency. But if you go to the NACE website and see that, I didn't want you to be surprised by that component. A lot of the aspects of that competency really are still addressed, though, in teamwork and in all of these other other competencies. Frankly, you need to understand who's in the room for you to be a leader, right? And understand how to relate to those people, how to include them, how to be equitable. And so there's still ways that students can learn about this competency within these other competencies. NACE, I think it was 2021, NACE started this process of trying to develop a sort of a common set of career competencies. And they started out with a much longer list than this. And through a few years of iterative process with their committee, they distilled it down to these 8. And I like them because they are independent concepts, but they are also very linked to each other. And I think it's probably fairly intuitive for you to look at. Like you have to be able to communicate if you want to be a good team member. You have to be able to be a good critical thinker if you're going to be a leader, those types of concepts. And so I think it's really helpful to think about them as independent, but also interconnected. All right, so I want to get some feedback from you all. I'm going to take you through a couple of questions and poll everywhere. All right. So to join this poll everywhere, you can, if you're on your computer, you can type into the web browser. Here, you can also join via text, and then my Zoom is blocking that. Yeah, okay. Join via text. So the first question, which of the following do you believe is the most important career readiness competency for today's graduates? I can make this larger if that helps folks with your phones. All right. Communications winning out. Professionalism, good. Critical thinking, communication. Yeah, nice. Yeah, good. I like that. So, communication is, as you can see, is kind of being prioritized here by everybody, and that really tracks. There's a lot of surveys that NACE does every year with employers, and consistently employers rate communication as one of the top three competencies that they think about. Also, critical thinking, and then teamwork is usually the third one that employers rank. But professionalism, it makes sense to cite that as one of the top three too. So. All right. Let's see. I'm kind of losing my spot. Okay, next question. When you think about career readiness, what is the first word or phrase that comes to mind? Licensure. Okay. Well-rounded. Yeah, good. Confidence, skills, thinker, job, prepared, successful. Yeah. Life. Yes. Ability. Yeah, good. Beautiful. I love the word cloud sort of creation because it helps create such a nice visual of what we're thinking about. And skills really is the key, right? So if we want to develop these skills and students to have the ability to communicate those skills, that we all recognize that that is really the key component. And students develop skills in all sorts of ways on campus, but they have such a hard time communicating those sometimes, even graduate students. Thank you for the person who put licensure, because when we're talking about a lot of these skills, yeah, we are really focusing on quote unquote soft skills and some of these broader concepts, but there really are some nuts and bolts pieces that have to be in place. You can't just become a nurse and then walk into a hospital and start doing what you want, right? There's regulations for a very good reason, and so there are some of those hard qualifications and skills that need to be in place for sure. Yeah, beautiful. All right, so third question. How confident are you that your students are graduating with the career readiness skills they need for success on your campus, in your context? Confident, very confident, somewhat confident. Okay, good. Not confident at all. Okay, thank you for saying that. I think what's interesting about this concept about our own perceived confidence that students are graduating with career readiness skills is the fact that here at South Dakota State, I could probably come up with a list of 10 students that I know personally who are very career ready. They are ready to graduate. They have jobs lined up. They have backup jobs lined up. Like they are solid. But here on the same campus, maybe in a different discipline, they're not quite there yet. They haven't quite figured it out. They're not really sure how to narrow it down. Haven't started networking yet. Haven't really started developing, a career plan, those kinds of things. So it can happen on the same campus um, very often, right? All right, next question. What is one barrier students face in developing career readiness skills during the time on your campus? Desire. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Opportunity. Okay. Not making it a priority. Okay. Technical skill over interpersonal. Okay. Mm. Awareness. Yeah. Even just identifying opportunities, let alone taking advantage of them. Okay. Time. Okay. Enough time. Okay. Connection with employers. Time factor. Mhm. Explicit. Yep. Okay. All great responses. Thank you for sharing those. Focus on academic. Yeah. So as I saw people logging on to the webinar today, I was struck with the fact that I think most of us are categorized as staff, maybe not quite faculty. And I think it's a really interesting thing to focus on because when we have students complete a student exit survey when they leave career fairs, and one of the questions is, how did you find out about the career fair? And the primary response is from faculty. And so I want, as staff, I want us to really be able to evangelize that message to our own faculty on campus. Like it is crucial for them to talk about these things in their classes and mention them uh, on syllabus, course materials, all that kind of stuff, because they have such a profound impact on students and their own development. And focus on academic readiness versus career readiness. And there's really a tough balance I know faculty try and work through. I had a faculty member in one of my workshops a while back say, I don't think I can put some of these topics into my class, this one class, because it's very content heavy, but I can do it in this other class. And I pushed back and said, well, look, the content is really the key part of that skill development and really connecting the concepts of that content. It makes it relevant. If it's relevant to the career, you should be able to articulate that fairly easily. So it is really, really crucial for us to be able to get faculty engaged with this process. All right, thanks. Last question. Where do you see the biggest opportunity to strengthen career readiness on your campus in your context in the classroom? Partnerships with employers, alumni. Yeah, good. Co-curricular activities, career services programming, experiential. Okay. Yeah, good. And of course, the right answer is all the above, right? Um, but yeah, in the classroom, I think is such a key area. Okay. All right. Thanks so much for your comments there. All right.
Kevin, there
Yeah,
is a question and or thought in the chat. So
check that out.
Laura, yeah, Laura said for the question about skills, that she feels confident that students are developing skills, but less confident that they're able to self-identify that they have those skills. So if you have any strategies for this, happy to hear that, whether now or kind of if you're going to get there. But that was kind of one of the thoughts on there is that confidence in being able to identify those skills.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Whitney. And thanks, Laura, for the comment. I really appreciate it. And I think we're going to get into that here through the rest of the content. So if I haven't really addressed it at the end, push back on me and say, hey, look, you didn't answer my question. And we can kind of dig into it a little bit there too. All right. So I want you to kind of think about it, as sort of priming kind of your brain a little bit. In the context of all of our responses and the polar everywhere questions, I want you to think about an assignment that you have with students or some sort of meeting type, or maybe it's an event that you conduct with students, like a student organization or something. Think about one particular activity. Identify what the purpose is for that activity. Be really clear on that. How does it impact students? And then try to identify what skills do students obtain through participation or completion of that particular activity. Okay. And then try and think about how you can build in reflection for that particular thing you're thinking about. The reflection piece is where we get into building that awareness for students. So if you have, something where you feel like, oh man, these students are they're going to develop great teamwork skills in this group project. Just because I made it a group project, they're going to develop the skills. It's not exactly true. Their takeaway might end up being, I don't like these three people you put me with. But if you have a more focused reflection question of how did you navigate communication barriers with this group, or how did you develop your own leadership skills with this group project, that becomes a really different event for those students and more developmental for them rather than just one of those things that teachers make you do, So it's those focused reflection questions, I feel like, is one of the big ways that we can help build those awareness pieces. All right, so students need context and repetition. Staff hear me talk about this all the time, and if you have been in my workshops, you've seen these same quotes as well. But again, I feel like the repetition is really good for all of us. It's good reminders. We did some focus groups with some students, I think it was a year ago now. And these are some of the common comments that we got from students. So one, I went to the career office because my professor specifically and directly told me to. One of those key points, faculty have such an impact. If it is stated in the classroom, it is more likely to happen. We had someone from career services present in one of my classes when I was a freshman, but I didn't think it was relevant at the time, so I tuned it out. We heard this quite a bit as well. And I think one of the hard parts about getting students to think about career readiness is when it's just a one-off kind of event. So we come into a lot of 119 courses, freshman seminar courses, and do presentations, which are really valuable. We get a lot of student awareness for our office and services, things like that. We see the impact, though, when we can come back and meet with those students as sophomores, juniors, and have follow-up conversations, not just talking about our office, but talking about the skill development, talking about different aspects of career development like networking or salary negotiation, whatever the case may be. There's different topics that we could really be a part of within the content of the course. I share this picture because it's one of those things where I found myself in my career somewhere I never thought I'd be. This is me garbed up at a Pfizer manufacturing facility, getting ready to do a site inspection to make sure it would work for pharmacy students for a rotation or a clerkship for them. And it was not something I ever, as a musician, never thought I would be there. So it's one of those things where students don't know where they're going to end up when they graduate, and we need to build that awareness in for students. We don't know what we don't know. I wish I would have understood the relevance of career services before my senior year. And this is one of those comments that I feel like is students are shouting from the rooftops, we need your guidance. We need you to talk about this. We don't know how to talk about it, so please help us. And so if you feel like you need permission to be deputized to do this with students, I give you permission today to talk with students about career development. Even if you're not as confident about it as you feel like you should be, it's okay. Sometimes that actually is really validating for them and normalizes this idea that we're all continually developing on our own competencies and professionalism. All right, so what I like to focus on is course enhancements. This is sort of a proof of concept. This is, if you're going to design a class from scratch, this is kind of a way to approach that. And I really value the work that Tilt is doing. So let me give you the link to that. If you're not familiar with Tilt, stands for Transparency in Learning and Teaching. And it's a group that provides a lot of different resources on how to be transparent and what you're trying to do. This day and age, students really need to understand the relevance of what you're talking about. Why are we doing this? Because I said so doesn't work. You need to have clear stated goals, clear stated outcomes, clear stated intent, and Tilt really helps develop that. And so this next few slides here are kind of some ideas on how you might be able to do that. So first, starting out with the syllabus. Granted, our syllabi with classes have a lot of content in them anymore. We have all sorts of things that have to be in there. But this is just one way that you can introduce the idea of career competencies to those students. Just making a statement, hey, I'm going to be talking about these throughout the semester. You'll see assignments that are tagged with the career competencies, and you can use this, the sample text for that. As you're designing your class, and again, you can apply this even to student employment. So maybe it's not a syllabus. So if you work with students in terms of like a supervisor context, maybe this is the position description, or maybe this is like an onboarding checklist that you have when you're orienting students to their job or their work study position. Like, hey, through our work, you're going to learn the NACE career readiness competencies and how you develop these skills with this job. So course enhancements, thinking about utilizing different voices. Of course, have folks from the Career Center on your campus come and give presentations about career readiness competencies. Maybe not just the content on like office overview or services provided, that kind of thing. That's valuable, of course, but really talking with students about what professionalism means. What does it mean to show up when you don't want to? What does it mean to dress appropriately? All that kind of stuff. How do we figure out what's appropriate at this factory versus this office space? Those types of questions that tend to not get talked about very, very much. Bring in field experts, have them discuss not only their current job, but also their own skill development. How did they get to where they are? Yeah, it's really awesome to hear from this big CEO at this Fortune 500 company, but where did they start? What was their first job out of school? That path is really hard for students to see right out of the gate sometimes. Okay, and these are just some ideas of to kind of get your sort of creative juices flowing in terms of thinking about types of activities or assignments. And so when you're thinking about maybe it's a meeting, maybe it's not a course, but there's different ways that you can embed these. So like identifying 3 career competencies that are being demonstrated effectively by characters in this role play scenario. So a really good way to deliver information with students is kind of case studies or scenarios where you provide a certain scenario for students, have them discuss it, what career readiness competencies are being demonstrated by this or that. So there's different ways to design those. Even in a theater production, even in the arts, which career competency do you think you develop the most by participating in this theater production? It's really good to think about. So there's ways to really apply this to any discipline. Are there career fairs on your campus in your context? There's ways to really have reflection built in for activities that you have with students. Have them go to the career fair and then come back and talk about it. What did they learn? Did they learn more about the discipline? Did they meet with some employers, learn about those employers' perceptions of career readiness? Because that can validate what you're doing in the class too. Like if they go to and they hear from an employer that critical thinking and communication and teamwork are really important, and you have that tagged on all your assignments, that's pretty powerful. So then when you're thinking about the beginning, we have the syllabus, we have uh, different structural events happening, speakers coming into the class, and then you're going to have some assignments. We'll get into some assignments here in a little bit, but then like course enhancements with thinking about and the end of the semester exams and questions and things like this, just a way to embed these into the actual sort of evaluations and assessments. Laura, this might help too. I think I've maybe discussed this with you in previous conversations, but having a self-assessment form for students to fill out after certain activities or events and advising sessions, helping them address their own perception of their career readiness and thinking about which competencies they're developing. Okay, so now we're going to get into some like specific actual sort of assignment types. And when we're thinking about competency of communication, we could really, of course, it's kind of intuitive to think about writing assignments. Communication is defined clearly as clearly and effectively exchange information, ideas, facts, and perspectives with persons inside and outside of an organization. Sample assignments would be essays and papers, presentations. And for the tilt perspective, it's the syllabus mapping that's really important. So next to the assignment, indicate the competency that you're wanting students to develop or they will develop with that assignment. Go a step further, and you can assign Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy of learning. Is this sort of the remember level, understanding? Are they applying? Are they analyzing? That's really important too for students to really understand. Oh, okay, I'm supposed to really kind of dig deeper on this. This isn't just about surface level facts. This is actually synthesis, So something to think about there. Teamwork. Of course, group projects, lab work with a partner, writing a group paper. Those are all really valuable activities because we do those as professionals. There's all sorts of, I'm on 2 or 3 committees right now where we are co-writing recommendations. So it is something that we all have to do. And that's why I think faculty assign students to do them because we know that they're professional activities, but oftentimes that connection really is not made. So again, with syllabus mapping, if we can map teamwork to that competency, but also communication, leadership, critical thinking, of course. Go a step further, assign Bloom's taxonomy, and then you can get this additional layer of awareness for students to develop as they go through these activities and assignments. Philosophy course. We can really activate even just talking about careers and perceptions of careers and ethics and get those things really kind of involved in the student's consciousness and awareness, like applying philosophical principles to the idea of unpaid internships. Are they ethical or not? Justify your answer. And do this in a paper, 1,000-word response, and then I want you to distill your ideas down into a 250-word response. That kind of skill development is really important. We all have to do that on almost a daily basis, where we're navigating language and understanding our audience. Audiences have different levels of language ability, right? Okay. One thing, our graduate school does this already in kind of a different way, but a supplemental prompt for a research paper. Pretend you are attending a networking event where there will be donors interested in supporting the research. They're all very intelligent, but are not experts in your discipline. Describe your project in an accessible way in 500 words. And this kind of thing is such a valuable experience for students to go through as well. Understanding the insider language that they might be using doesn't translate very well to people on the outside of that discipline sometimes. And so it's a really good practice for students to do. And I love that the graduate school here has a contest when students have to do this verbally, actually. But so it's really great. And again, applying this to something outside of the classroom, work study, programming training during onboarding and exit interviews, talk with students about these competencies. And even when we have students working in food service, sometimes they feel like they're just working a food job. They're not really, helping their career. It's just couldn't be further from the truth. Customer service is one of the most universal skills that we all work on and need. And so that can translate to anything that we're doing. And so as long as students are told that, and really if we can help them connect the dots, it goes a long way. All right, so I want to take a couple minutes here to do this. So I had a slide a little while ago, same kind of questions here for you to think about. You could think about a meeting type or an event or an assignment you have with students. Get clear on the purpose, get clear on the impact. What skills do students obtain through participation or completion? How does this connect to the competencies, and how can you build in reflection? So I will literally take about a minute here for you all to think about that. And I want, if you're comfortable, at some point, share it in the chat or either speak up on the webinar and share what you're thinking about. All right, does anybody want to share what you're thinking about?
I was typing in the chat, but then I didn't finish my thought. Um, so I was putting in there that through our peer-to-peer programming, which is all about mental wellness skills, things like that, but we talk about life skills, which is very relatable here. But most of our programming is training our skills on how to support their peers, but we spend a lot of the time with our staff in our one-on-ones with mentors asking them of like, how do these skills apply to your life, apply to your everyday life, apply to your career. And so we always say we act as a mentor to our mentors to make sure that they know how those skills can apply in the real world, if you will, helping connect those dots. And then we do a survey at the end of the year too that they do for a reflection that's kind of built into the program. So we kind of do that ongoing.
Nice.
Yeah, but just making sure that they can connect the dots. That I love that. I think Laura said it earlier of like, how do they know, right? Like they might have the skills, but can they identify that they have the skills and the
Yeah.
confidence in being able to say that? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It takes us consistently just pulling that thread, right? And if we can do it together in different contexts, that's where the power comes in, right? It becomes really powerful. Yeah, thanks, Whitney. Sarah, thank you for your comment in the chat. RA training, yeah, school minds. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, we do a lot of work with the residential life folks here on campus, and they're called CAs here, but we do some CA training with them, talking about the career competencies and how those apply in the work that they're doing, and it's a really great way to meet with a lot of students at one time too, right? So yeah, it's helpful. Good. Any other ideas people want to share at the moment? It's okay if not. All right. All right. So now what? Right? We talked about this stuff. All right. We've got the NACE competencies. We have some control over the barriers that we could have maybe identified earlier in the pull everywhere questions. We might understand our role with students. What's next? Next steps for you, just experiment. There really isn't, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I don't feel like there's really a wrong way to experiment with this stuff, right? If you're really focusing on communication skills, then do it. Name it. Tell students that's what you're working on for them, and they might not thank you in the moment, but they'll be grateful for it later in life for sure. Explore the tilt framework. I find it really helpful, just thinking about that transparency piece and just giving yourself sort of permission to call out what you need to do. Naming things really has a lot of power. So the tilt framework really resonates with me. Brainstorm where this might line up with the work you're already doing. I think one of the misconceptions about embedding career development into activities and courses is that it is a new thing. You have to redesign everything. It's an extra thing, but it's actually just sort of tweaking what you're already doing, adding different language, maybe switching a phrase here or there. That can really have a lot of impact for students to understand, like, oh, okay, this actually is really helping me. That's why we're doing this. Zoom out as well. Think about your department or unit assessment plans, your strategic plans. How does this line up with the university goals that the campus that you're on? Think about that context. And I say what I mean and I mean what I say. So if you need a sounding board, contact me. I'm happy to kind of workshop some ideas with you and help you out with any questions that you have about this. So I think we have plenty of time now for some specific questions. Laura, maybe I'll follow up with you. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think the point you made about what was it, like context, repeating the same thing over and over again. I'm like, I need to go to another one of these because I need to hear things again. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the ideas that you're sharing. And that last piece you had about, I was thinking, okay, I have advising appointments with students, and what skills are they getting right now?
Mm-hmm.
We're making plans and goals and making a roadmap, but I don't know. I'd have to think about what specific skills we're developing in those meetings. And so I really want to find a way to build the NACE into what I do with students and help that be make that a more intentional part of what I do. So
Yeah.
Thanks for these reminders, and maybe next time I'd be able to report I've implemented some things too.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Laura. I appreciate it. Any other comments or questions?
Say you can unmute if you feel comfortable doing so, if you do have any questions, thoughts. Otherwise, if not, Kevin, if you want to do a quick wrap up and then I'll kind of conclude it and we'll give some time back to folks.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the key things that I want people to understand is just keep it simple. This doesn't have to be this mountain moving kind of thing, a new strategic plan, a new task force, all that kind of stuff. Just keep it simple. Focus on what you're doing. Our actions with students may seem simple, but they can really have a profound impact. I think about a lot of students that I worked with in a grad school class. They invited me to come in and talk about our office and the services that we provide. I had them do just a quick exercise about skill development, and this student didn't think he had any skills, and I took him through some questions, kind of drilled down on some questions with him. It's great sport, so he was up for doing it in front of the whole class, which is wonderful. But by the end of it, I realized, or he realized, okay, before he came to the States, he actually worked as a headmaster at a school. And during his time there, he didn't have any students drop out. He didn't have any major like family concerns or parents concerned with the way the school was operating. He didn't have any operation failures at the school. So, oh my gosh, we have tons of leadership skills here. We have tons of communication skills, problem solving skills, all that kind of stuff. And by the end of that, 30 minutes that I was with him, he walked away with his head held a little bit higher and a clearer sense of what he's working on. So it really doesn't take a whole new invention of the wheel to get this to work and to make this happen. So that's one of the key things that I really want people to think about.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Kevin. I love that piece. I often say as higher ed folks, we're just here to help students connect the dots and see that potential and help empower them to rise to it. So thank you for sharing with us today. This is recorded, so it will be on our South Dakota Higher Education Association webpage shortly. So if you have staff members or colleagues who were unable to attend, they can view the recording on our website. And again, as a reminder, our registration is open for our annual conference in October. And we are looking for folks to present on a variety of areas: advising, career, counseling. Those are just what's popping to the top of my head. Faculty members, we want all folks in higher ed to share the amazing things that you all are doing. So take a look at possibly presenting at our annual conference in October. Again, thank you, Kevin, for presenting our April webinar. We will have one coming up as well in May and throughout the summer. We do keep these going, so keep an eye out for those. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your April.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.